Welcome everybody to the nationwide prayer campaign to end abortion forever. Um, I almost didn't make it today, but I'm so glad I did, thanks to prayers. So let's get on with the prayer. Zach will join us in a little bit. God bless you all. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we have Zach here today. And before I bring him on, I just wanted to tell you that it was a very tough day for me. I think it was a spiritual attack and also physical. My spine was killing me, and I couldn't get out of bed. I was lying down, and I'm like, I called up Zach, and it was funny because Zach usually feels like he's under the weather, but it sounds like he's under the weather, but he sounded strong. I said, Zach, give me some of that strength. And basically, he said, you just have to get up for an hour and then you could crawl back into bed. And, just hearing his voice gave me strength because, I know he suffers a lot, but it made me think of the readings for today where when you cry out to the Lord and he helps you. He really does, and he wipes your tears away. And I was literally crying. But now I'm all smiles. Hi, Zach. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, you're not on speaker. Hold on. I don't know why it's not working. Okay, go ahead. Zach. Go ahead.
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. You sound really, really good today. How's everything?
Everything's good. I feel good today.
Wow. And
I had, my nurse came in, redressed my foot, and my physical therapist came in and worked me out for about an hour. It was a good day.
Wow. So now, Zach, it'll take how long before you could start getting on that foot of yours, the prosthesis that they made for
Well,
you?
the prosthetic I wear almost every day. But before I can walk, it'll be at least 7 weeks.
Oh, okay. 7 weeks.
I've got to work out for the next 7 weeks. At 7 weeks, I'll be 12 weeks out of my right surgery on my knee. If my foot is healed on my left foot, then I can get the surgery. And if my foot is not healed, I have to wait for that to heal. So I have to be 12 weeks out of the surgery on my right knee, and my left foot has to be healed. And if I get both those things, then I can get surgery on my left knee, which I tore the meniscus in both my knees.
Wow. Well, this is the time that your legs will be strengthened up. So we're going to be praying for you, Zach.
Thank you.
So before we get into it, do you mind if I go ahead and read the readings for today?
Sure.
Okay, the first reading is Isaiah. On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a feast of fat things, a feast of wine on the lees, of fat things full of marrow, of wine on the lees well refined. And he will destroy on this mountain the covering that is cast over all peoples, the veil that is spread over all nations. He will swallow up death forever, and the Lord God will wipe away tears from all faces, and the reproach of his people he will take away from the earth. For the Lord has spoken. It will be said on that day, Lo, this is our God. We have waited for him, that he might save us. This is the Lord, that we have waited for him. Let us be glad and rejoice in his salvation. For the hand of the Lord will rest on this mountain, and Moab shall be trodden down in this place, as straw is trodden down in a dung pit. And then the psalm for today, the responsorial psalm, is, The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. For thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And then the gospel of today. And Jesus went on from there and passed along the Sea of Galilee. And he went up the mountain and sat there. And great crowds came to him, bringing with them the lame, the maimed, the blind, the dumb, and many others. And they put them at his feet, and he healed them. So that the throng wondered when they saw the dumb speaking, the maimed whole, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they glorified the God of Israel. Then Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion on the crowd, because they have been with me now 3 days, and have nothing to eat, and I am unwilling to send them away hungry, lest they faint on their way. And the disciples said to him, Where are we to get bread enough in the desert to feed so great a crowd? And Jesus said to them, How many loaves have you? They said, 7, and a few small fish. And commanding the crowd to sit down on the ground, he took the 7 loaves and the fish, and having given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds, and they all ate and were satisfied. They took up 7 baskets full of the broken pieces left over. The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. So this, to me, this is so really very beautiful, because he knows every heartache, every pain, everything that is hurting us, and all the brokenness in us. And he just wants to save us, and he wants to heal us. He wants to care for us. He has compassion. He has compassion on us. So in big and small things, like for the first reading, you would suppose that is, at the end of this life, all tears will be wiped away when it's time to meet our Maker, and it's time to go into our rest with him. And so this gospel shows even now as we're maimed and blind and we have all brokenness, he comes, especially the hungry. He wants to feed them. So
but I think people need to remember that not everybody gets to go to heaven.
Right.
It's Judgment Day. Jesus didn't. If everybody was going to heaven, there'd be no reason for Jesus to come.
Exactly. But I guess for those that wait upon him and hope in him, that's their heavenly reward, to be completely restored in heavenly glory with the glory and splendor of heaven. So the thing is too that do you know, when he asked the disciples, I think that of course he knew what he was going to do, but he wanted them to share in the compassion. What are we going to do? They're hungry. They were with me 3 days. That's what I used to do to my children. Oh, look, these, the homeless here, they're hungry. What can we do for them? And they're like, Mom, get them food. So they pulled at me because I brought attention to them. Sometimes people just don't naturally have compassion. You have to push them into it a little bit. Do you agree?
Yeah, at times. And there's also, we seem to be complacent about a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Like we see some things every day and we don't notice that there's a need.
Right.
It's like seeing the same thing over and over again.
That's exactly what I mean.
It's there.
Exactly. You have to wake up people from their slumber and from being inside of themselves. Look, that person is sitting in the side and cold. I feel cold. How much more do they feel? You know, you have to wake them up a little bit, shake them up. And Jesus said, how many loaves have you? And he says, 7, and small fishes. 7. 7 is very symbolic to the Jews and to us Christians. 7 is the fullness of love. So it's like saying, I'm going to provide because of my love, you know? And then he had 7 baskets full of broken pieces left over. So my love is enough to feed you, and enough to be well over, multiplied. So God is really amazing. He really is. You know?
God is truly amazing.
I mean, remember, Zach, when both of us were talking, and both of us like had an experience with the Blessed Mother, and like we were living this false life on earth, thinking that we were all big, and we had this, I don't know what it is, you know, this extreme pride. But there was such emptiness in us. I had depression. I don't know what you had, but I had depression. But when she appeared, both of us, we had a common denominator. The Lord sent his mother to us, bringing us restoration, and we were overloaded with joy that it spilt over for how many years afterwards.
Well, I would have thought, I think that at the time, before I had God, I thought I was better than you and everybody else.
Yeah, I had that secret thing too.
You know, I was prideful. I believed I was better than, I didn't just think I was better than you. I knew I was.
Yeah.
You know, every person I came in contact with, I pretty much judged. And they were all beneath me. But I had been the High Wizard for 12 years. So as the High Wizard, you teach yourself, and everybody else teaches you that you are better than everybody else. You know, it's in the handbook that nobody can tell you what to do. It's on the first page. Nobody can tell you what to do. And from there, you get worse. And you're basically like a child that always gets his way. You're completely spoiled.
Right. It builds you up, and then it's a false.
It's completely false. Everything that you have is not yours, and everything that you think you can do, you really can't.
Right. I know. It's like falling for the big lie.
But that's all of Satanism is like that. You know, everything he gives you is a pretty box with false promises in it. You know, I describe it in my talks as it's a box covered in glitter and neon lights, and he tells you not to look at it very closely, not to examine it up close. Because when you examine it closely, you notice those gold bars don't exactly look right. And then if you examine them up close and personal, you'll find out that it's gold-colored aluminum foil wrapped around a dog poop.
Yep.
You know, that not only is it complete trash, but there's nothing, it's got undervalue. You know, there's nothing you can do with it, and it's worthless, and it even takes away from you.
So true. It's so true. So if we are to believe this, what God has for us versus what the world, the devil, the self, you know, has for us, and we know that God has such beautiful things, and we rely upon his word, and we have true trust in him, then even in this time of uncertainty, shouldn't we also have that? It's like there's like a silk screen of something negative in front of us. But we as Christians should have that joy inside of us, knowing that our Father is the Father of everything. Yeah, we don't want to trust.
Well, it's hard for us. Remember that when I came into the church, the day I came in, the day that, to me, the day that I felt like I converted, was the day the woman dropped the blessed miraculous medal in my hand.
Mm.
On that day, me and my wife had been talking about finding a church we could go to, but she had grown up Jehovah's Witness and knew that they were a cult, and I knew that if the devil's not attacking you, why would you even belong to that church? And the only church that I knew he attacked was the Baptists and the Catholics. And I knew he stopped attacking the Baptists in the 1990s. We had weakened their faith a lot. You know, when they stopped fighting against gay marriage. They stopped fighting against abortion. They started dressing. I mean, they used to wear dresses that went down to the floor, and now they wear miniskirts to church.
Let's pause there, Zach. Zach, for those who didn't know his past, he had a certain assignment. Like he was a wizard, a satanic wizard at one time, but his assignment was to break up Baptist churches, and he did it like an expert, right, Zach?
Well, there's 3 teams that break up Baptist churches.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not breaking them up alone. There's a team working with me.
Oh, okay.
There's a gossip team, which is what I belong to, but there's also a sex scandal team, and there's a monetary scandal team.
Mm.
So, like, these big mega churches that somehow, you know, they take in $300,000 on a Sunday, well, that $300,000 will disappear. And, you know, it's a monetary scandal, and, you know, there might be somebody that has to quit the church in shame or scandal, but all of that is just a satanic plant just to cause dissension and doubt in the church.
Mm-hmm.
The sex scandal team is somebody is going to have sex with a 15 or 16-year-old girl, and it'll be the minister of music, minister of youth, the pastor of the church, and usually that satanic girl was planted there. She could have been planted there from birth. To eventually she's going to have sex with the one of those ministers when she turns 15 or 16.
Wow.
And she knows what she's doing. She's been raised this whole time that that's what she's going to do. You know, and then there's the gossip team, which is what my team did. And we had, don't think of a team of like 5 people. We're talking like 100 people are on each one of these teams, and we hit multiple churches at the same time. And in the time that I was doing it, I think we split up like 120 churches, but a split is not, we're not out to destroy the church. We're not out to decimate it. We're not out to make it close the doors. We're there just to make it split.
Mm.
And, you know, when people hear my number, they're like 120. That seems impossible. It's like, do you know how many Baptist churches there are in the world? There's thousands.
Mm.
So 120 is like nothing.
Mm.
And then, you know, people have talked about, you know, I did it for 12 years and I did 120. That's 10 a year. How could you possibly do so many? I was like, I was on a team that did that many.
Mm.
You know, if I was doing it by myself, I could have maybe done 5 or 6.
Wow.
So that 120 is what my team did in 12 years.
Yeah. That's a lot.
It is a lot. But after around 95 or 96, the Satanists stopped attacking them. We had weakened their faith, watered them down. I mean, you still have, you know, certain prayer warriors and things that are still strong in their faith. But the devil truly feels that if you're not attacking him, he won't attack you.
Mm.
So the only 2 churches we attacked was the Baptists and the Catholics. The Catholics, I had no idea why we attacked them, because I'd heard from my dad that all Catholics were going to hell when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. But that wasn't your assignment, right?
I that wasn't my assignment.
So you really didn't know anything about the Catholic faith?
Right. I was totally oblivious, even to the point that when the woman dropped the Blessed Miraculous Medal in my hand, I didn't know that the Blessed Mother was Mary. You know, when that woman said the Blessed Mother is calling you into her army, my first thought was ISIS, Gaia. I didn't have any idea who the Blessed Mother was. I didn't know that was a Catholic term. I didn't know that was an actual phrase. You know, to me, this woman is talking in esoteric terms. You know, it's like a code word that if I was in her cult, then I would know what the Blessed Mother is. But since I'm not in her cult, I'm left guessing, is it Isis or Gaia?
Wow. Well, apparently there's a lot of people who don't know the power that God has bestowed on the Blessed Mother, because it's like, if you look at it, it's all about the contradiction of the small versus the huge. And she's a small, sweet, full of love mother who says yes, and she could defeat Satan. Even her mere name.
Well, I know from being in exorcisms that demons can't say the name of Mary. They always refer to her as the woman. But that's because Jesus also referred to her as that, and so does Genesis.
Right.
But what I was saying before, the same God that took me, who I had been a Satanist the day I was given the miraculous medal, you know, and I see Jesus and the Blessed Mother, and I feel that day that I was instantly Catholic. That same God, when we took my mother had Lewy body dementia for 12 years. And it's a form of Parkinson's disease. And in that, you can tell the difference in that and Alzheimer's, because if you have Lewy body, you hallucinate. And you think your hallucinations are legitimate. She saw my dad walking on the sidewalk, pacing the sidewalk in front of the house, waiting for his girlfriend to pick him up. And then his girlfriend would come pick him up and take him away for 12 hours and then bring him back at the end of the day. Now, while she's hallucinating that, my dad is confined to a wheelchair and cannot even take one step out of the wheelchair.
Wow.
He cannot even pivot. We have to lift him up and load him into the car because he can't pivot into the car. There is no sidewalk in front of my parents' house. It's in a residential area where there are no sidewalks down that street. My mom said that my dad would drive the backhoe from the shed every day and use the backhoe to tear up the sidewalk. My parents don't own a backhoe. If there was a backhoe, it wouldn't fit in the shed. But the backhoe's in the shed. He drives it out every day, tears up the sidewalk, and then that's at the end of the day, so you don't see proof of there being a sidewalk there anymore. Wow. And then every day, somebody lays the sidewalk down so that he can go out there and pace back and forth on the sidewalk. Remember that he can't walk, and wait for his girlfriend to pick him up and take him away for 12 hours. Now, she would see all this while my dad is sitting in the wheelchair in the living room watching TV.
Wow.
And she would tell me, he left 12 hours ago. I said, Mom, he's still sitting right there.
What would your dad say about that?
He would just shake his head. And he actually believed that she was faking the dementia.
Oh.
So life was difficult on him for a minute because it took him a while to wrap his brain around that this was a real thing. So when we got my mother absolution, we had heard that it was possible to get it. And we went and talked to this priest named Father Bradis. And Bradis, he passed away in 2015, but we went back to the sacristy, and he said, well, your mother would have to be lucid and understand what we're talking about. And if she understood and gave me her confession, then I could give her absolution. Well, at that point, my mother had had dementia for 9 years. She didn't even know who I was. I had to call her by her first name, because if I called her mom, it'd make her upset, and she'd start crying, and she'd talk about how lonely my life must have been not knowing who my mother was, if I'm calling her mom, and she knows she doesn't have any children. And she has me and my brother, but she doesn't recognize either one of us as her kids. And she doesn't even recognize her husband. She thinks that she's still 17 or 18 years old. She's just now married. But when my dad would flirt with her, she would tell him, you're a very nice man, but if you're here when my husband comes home, he'll beat you up. And he's trying to tell her, I'm your husband. She goes, that's nice. She's like, my husband is nice and young, and he's a Marine, and he's going to beat you up really bad if he shows up and you're here flirting with me.
So she saw your dad as a young man.
Yeah, she saw my dad still as when he was 20 years old when he married her. She was 17. And, she just saw him as that. When we had a mirror in the living room, and when she saw her reflection, she waved, and she talked about that old lady that she waved to is the preacher's wife that lives behind her house.
Oh my goodness.
She didn't know it was her own reflection. So when Father Bradis tells me that she has to have this moment of lucidity, I know there's no way. The same God that gave me a blessed miraculous medal and brought the Blessed Mother and Jesus to me and caused me to have an instant conversion, I thought there's no way he's going to make my mother lucid after 9 years of dementia and make it so that, she, suddenly knows what we're all talking about. How we got to this moment is that my mother got out of the house 3 times, where we had told my dad, at the time that we told him, we moved him into a new house, and we told him he needed to change the locks and put on a deadbolt that locks with a key. But he didn't believe that my mother had dementia, so he didn't do that. She got out of the house 3 times and walked the neighborhood. He couldn't find her and had to call the sheriff's office. The sheriff department found her, but you can't just grab somebody with dementia and throw them in the car. You have to make them think it's their idea. So the cops would ask her, what's she looking for? Can they help her find it? And she said she was looking for a Catholic church. So we told our priest that, and he said, well, if she thinks she's Catholic now, she grew up Catholic. She had 17 years of daily mass and then converted to being Baptist so she could marry my dad. So we took her to the Catholic Church for 3 years, and she was going to daily mass with us, and everybody fell in love with her. She's this really short Puerto Rican lady. She's really feisty. She can speak English and Spanish, and we had a Spanish mass we'd sometimes take her to. And we had a really good time with her. But 3 years of going to mass and then kind of wishing that we could take her to get her absolution. Okay. So we go and we talk to Father Bradis, and he tells us that, and I'm kind of crestfallen because I'm thinking, it's not going to happen. The same God that the Blessed Miraculous Medal in my hand and brought me Jesus and the Blessed Mother could do that for me, is not going to be able to make my mother lucid enough to have this conversation. And we walk out the back of the sacristy, and there's my mom talking with some of our friends, she's sitting in a wheelchair, and I'm walking with my wife Katie and Father Bradis. And Father Bradis walks up to her, and she always has a smile on her face when she sees a priest. And he says, "Anna?" He's gone. He's going to pick up the kids.
Abby's card you called me. Where are you?
I'm still on the phone. So we're walking out the back, and there's my mom sitting there, and Father Bradis says, "Anna, we're going to see if we can get you to take the Eucharist again soon." And she smiled real big and said, "That would be wonderful. It's been such a long time." And he gave the sign of the cross over and said, "Good enough for me." So we got my mother absolution. And then we'd been told prior to that because my mother had dementia, that she wasn't sinning. She's not aware of anything that she's doing or saying. And so she's not actually, no matter what she does, she's not sinning. Because she can't control her actions. So then we got her in a state of grace. And then we got her the Eucharist 3 times before she died. We gave her last rites probably 6 times before she actually died.
Wow.
And a lot of the priests that met her said that she most likely lived out her purgatory here, having dementia for 12 years. And that she probably went straight to heaven. And they said, "Do you know who her number 1 fan is going to be? Who is she going to love the most?" And I said, "God, Mary." And I said, "Probably you." He said, "You're the one that got her into heaven." So you're the one with the presence of mind to get her absolution.
Praise God.
You got her absolution. She's living in a state of grace. She got the Eucharist. She's had last rites.
She had the works.
Yeah, she had everything. He goes, she's going to die and wake up in heaven and be like, "How'd I get here?" You know, and they're going to say, "Remember Zachary King?"
Oh. I remember taking my friend who hadn't gone to confession for years and years and years. And a lot of people have been told the lie, saying, "Why do I have to confess to a priest?" But they don't know what a gift it is. So I just told her, because she hadn't gone in a long time, let him lead you. Let him lead you. So that's what happened. And then when she came out, her face, her countenance was bright. It was completely different. And she said, "Karen, I felt like I had complete what is this? A complete cleansing inside and out. I feel so high." Like she felt like she was going to fly. And that's the gift that God has in store for us, that the devil doesn't want people to know, because it's restorative and healing. And you know, it's just the best restoration is being able to hold God's hand again, you know, with the sins that separated us. And the priest brings the 2 hands together.
Well, when I was a Baptist, I read the entire Bible more than once. And then when I was Catholic, I read it again, and I saw verses that I don't remember seeing in the King James Version. You know, I mean, there's full books in there that aren't there, but there was also like the part about where Jesus commands people to hear people's confession and forgive them. It's like he gave the apostles the right, you know, the ability to do that. And if you know that's apostolic succession, we still have that now. You know, and you listen to the Baptists, they'll preach against the Catholics confessing things to a man. You know, it's like, what about in the Bible when Jesus commanded his apostles to do it?
Yeah, but what people don't realize is that the priest works in persona Christi. In that moment, yeah.
In the person of Christ. I mean, yeah, there's so many people that don't understand that verse. Don't understand what that means.
Amen.
Or in the Baptist church, anybody could be a preacher. If you feel you've got the calling, go be a preacher. Go start your own church. And it doesn't work that way in the Catholic Church. It's like by the time you're a priest, you have all your faculties. You have the ability, and not just during confession, to become in persona Christi.
So that's the gift of our faith. It's really surprising when you get to see what God has given us through. He truly will never leave us. I mean, our church has that gift, and even the people in it are leaving because they're not they're ignorant of our church. And I think it's a grace that once you get to really know God, you want to know His church. I met this lawyer. I used to bring my friend who used to sing every Friday night at a nearby restaurant bar, and her husband said, stay with her, just be with her. And she would sing this pop music and everything. So there would be this lawyer who was there, and we'd strike up a conversation, and he knew all about the faith. And I said, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful, because all we talked about was about the Catholic Church. And I said, I can't believe you know so much. And I said, what, were you always like this? And he said, no, one day I figured, I'm Catholic, I better know about my own faith. And he dove right into it. He went through the catechism of the Catholic Church, and then once you start to know more, you it feels like you can never be quenched, because you always want to learn more. It's amazing.
And there is almost more than you can possibly ever
know.
Yeah,
there will never be, as you exhaust every book there is of every saint, of every person who's a doctor of the church, and they specialized in wonderful, different different specialties, like Saint Therese, a little flower was made a doctor of a church because she knew spiritual childhood. And that is such an important thing for us. We have to learn how to be children again, and then make every single thing count. Like, here's a dish where no amount of soap and scrubbing will get this dirt off this dish. But when you spiritualize it and you say, Lord, let every single crust here that I'm trying to scrub out be for another soul. Let it be done with all love for you. These things are great treasures in the hands of God when He sees that we do these things, all for souls. So whatever we do, we could do anything everywhere. We could do like menial chores with such fervor, because we know we're doing it for something, for Him. He takes these sweet ejaculations of faith. Lord, I don't really feel like sweeping the floor, but let me do it for you. And then you wind up loving it because it's an act of love. Because you're doing it for the love of your life, God, and you're doing it for a soul that He loves. And then this is the way I started to lose enemies, because when God said bless your enemies, I would bless them with doing this, and I started loving them, and they wouldn't. I'm like, Lord, I have no more enemies. It's your fault. He's just so amazing. He transforms you, But then there's all these other, specialties that our church has, these saints. And I believe that the way that you could climb into such high spirituality is read a saint's book. Read a saint's book. You see how in love they are for God and how they would do anything for God. And then you feel like, I wish I could copy him.
If I would recommend a book like that to everybody that can hear my voice, look up 13 Holy Helpers by Tan Books. It's a very tiny, it's probably, I would guess it to be less than 50 pages. And a lot of churches actually have it, like in the rectory sometimes, or when you're leaving the church, they have like a list of pamphlets that you can just pick up for free. A lot of times it's in something like that. And they must be really cheap, I'm guessing, because churches buy them in bulk and then just give them out for free. But I I picked one up from a church one time, and I was so impressed with it. And it's 13 children that were martyred.
Mm.
And it's 13 martyrs. I don't remember any of their names, but I sometimes I remember them as 13 holy helpers, and I pray to them.
Wow.
And they seemed like, why couldn't I have been? I'd have been dead a long time ago. Why couldn't I have died like one of these kids? Because they so believed in their faith.
Mm.
They were so powerful.
So beautiful. And I remember my first book on Padre Pio. It was in my new conversion, and I was like, I'm going to finish this book, because I was flying to the Philippines, and it's a stretch of 18 hours, I think it was. It was a long ride going there, so I couldn't put the book down, and I read the whole book going there. And one of the things I picked up for it was the Holy Souls in Purgatory, and how we are so related to each other, and we need to help them out, and they'll never stop praying for you once they reach their heavenly crown. And so, like, Padre Pio would literally hear them say, thank you, viva, viva, Padre Pio, they would say, as they were leaving. Because he couldn't stop praying for them too. He saw the importance of them leaving that place, and only our prayers could do that, our prayers and our sufferings, and we offer it to God for their intention. So as I started doing it and doing it and doing it, and it became like such a life goal for me. I need to get them out of there so they could see Jesus and Jesus could see them. And the next thing you know, they started appearing to me. They started appearing to me, and I wasn't scared at all. I wasn't scared, and I'm like, okay, I'll pray more. And then that, maybe that was just to strengthen my resolve that I was doing what God willed. And of course, I don't see it anymore. Only very few times, like every now and then I'll see a soul, and it would be from the side of my eye in my periphery. But I would know, I had a knowing, they're waiting for our prayers. And the joy that is brought to them once they leave that place called purgatory, the purgation, the big washing of sins, in the fire of God's love. And people only knew that this is all love. And the promise at the end of purgatory is heaven. So that's one of the...
I heard a priest tell a story, it's probably a few years ago, and he said that he was in the Adoration Chapel, and it's connected to the church, to the sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he heard a noise out in the sanctuary, and he knows that he's not giving Mass again today, and he's not hearing confession either. So why are there people in the sanctuary? So he opens the door and looks out, and he sees it's around 300 people, but they're dressed in different periods, like through the ages.
Mm.
Like their clothes are like tattered or old. I mean, like from like the 1500s or the 1600s. And there's all these men and women sitting at Mass.
Mm.
And he realizes that he needs to say a Mass for these people. So he goes up to the altar and starts doing a Mass. Obviously it's a low Mass, and he does the Mass, and he gets to the consecration, and he said, and everybody is smiling, and he goes all the way to the part where somebody has to take the Eucharist, which he's the only one that can, and he takes the Eucharist, and then people start disappearing.
Mm.
And by the time the Mass is completely over, he's the only one in the sanctuary.
It's amazing.
And he said he had heard stories like that before, but had never witnessed anything like it before. And now that he sees that that's real, I think he does 2 Masses every day, and one of the Masses is for all the souls in purgatory.
Wow, that's wonderful. The powerful prayer and worship of the Mass for these souls. That's beautiful. I remember the time of 9/11, and we didn't live too far from that, and all of a sudden, all these people were appearing, and I, I had a daughter. I have a daughter, and she was about, I would say about 8 years old then. And then I said, Ashley, I want to talk to you about something. And she's like, no, don't say it. She knew right away what I was going to say. And she could see them too. She saw them head on. But I would see them from my periphery and all walks of life. And then I said, Ashley, we got to pray for them. No, I don't even want you to say that. I don't want you to mention it. I don't want to hear it. I said, but Ashley, what if you were given a grace to reach out to somebody who could pray for you, and that person ignored you completely and snubbed you, and you had that one chance to reach out to that person? And then she's like, okay, Mom. And then we did the rosary, and then after the rosary, the family rosary, and then afterwards we held hands and we said, Lord, all these people that are appearing to us, if they're evil spirits, we bind them to the foot of the cross in Jesus' most holy name. But if they're holy souls in purgatory that need our prayer, and I didn't even need to say another word, this electricity went from the top of my head and reverberated throughout my body, up and down, up and down. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I turned around and I said, Ashley, they need our prayers. So that's what we started doing. We started praying for those souls because I think a lot of souls were not prepared at 9/11 and they needed our help. And so she would say to me, Mom, and I didn't even relay that to her. It was 9/11. It was just in my mind because she was too young. She said to me, Mom, I saw people in business clothes, like a suit and briefcases. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I didn't put two and two together until way later on, So I think it's kind of to substantiate a little bit of what we understand. And it might not be true that they're in that state with, it's just a symbol for us to know, that from whence they came and how we could help them. And I know no matter how much you help, that is what you get in return later on at the time of your need, So
Well, I hope so, because I pray a lot for those people.
Praise God. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. Now, we've been on for almost an hour. And I just want to shout out to my daughter, my second daughter. Her name is Katrina. She was...
You named her after a hurricane?
I named her after my name?
No, you named her after a hurricane.
Hurricane. No, the hurricane was named after her.
Okay.
Okay, she, at 3 years old, was diagnosed with leukemia. And it was really, really hard. It was really hard for a small child to go through all of that. And she was very frightened and very fragile. She almost perished 3 times. I mean, like code blue. She was like, they had to artificially keep her alive one time. And, it's really hard to see a child who's in depression when the light is out of their eyes, even though we were with the Lord and praying and praying and praying, because they had made her quarantined against children and the world, just so she was so at a sensitive area in her life where she could catch anything, because of the meds they were giving her. And her whole medicine was other children. Once she saw her siblings, she was back to herself. Well, she suffered through the whole protocol, and chemo, oral, through the veins, and the spinal, which was every 6 weeks. It was very bad. Like she was a tiny little thing, and I think they needed 6 doctors and nurses to hold her back after she'd wake up. It was really bad. So that was a big trial. And she came through it alive, and she's a beautiful girl. It's her birthday today, Katrina's birthday, and I'm asking the Lord to bless her. And if you could say a prayer for her, she's named after. She's really Catherine Ann, named after Saint Catherine and Saint Anne, and the Hurricane Katrina. No, just kidding.
Is she? How old is she?
She's 25 today.
She's old. I never met anybody 25 before.
I know. She's older than me now. So, happy birthday, Katrina. And Zach, thanks for the message, and thanks for the message of purgatory. I hope other people see how very, very, very important it is for us to chip in, prayers, sacrifices for them, and also to remember that God will always, always, as much as we suffer, He will be there for us just when we need Him the most, and wipe every tear from our eye. And He'll pick us up, He'll feed us, He'll bring us anew, whether it be in heaven or here on earth. So we thank you, Lord. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Say goodbye.
Bye, everybody. See you next Wednesday.
See you next Wednesday. Love you all. Thanks, Zach, for pushing me.
Sure.
God bless you all.
Bye.
Bye.